Hey, my name is Jack, and with another build for the Legacy of Phrecia event, which will be starting tomorrow. So this will be the last video I'll be uploading before the start of the league. So what we have this time is a Sion Scavenger, and using Flicker Strike. And the reason for that is because the Scavenger gives us Outro's Sacrifice, Cutting Strike against burning enemies, gain a Frenzy Charge if an attack ignites an enemy. And then there is also gain adrenaline for 5 seconds on kill, so free death rushing, and Stasis Prison, which is the defense snob that we're gonna take if there's nothing better. Sadly, 50% of damage taken recouped is life. Debuffs on you expire 50% faster. So with that, we can get the Outro's Sacrifice, which is normally used for an ignite fire type Flicker Strike build, and instead we can just use any other weapon we want. I've decided for a two-handed sword, specifically for a rare two-handed sword, which we can scale heavily into the late game. As we are a Sion who doesn't have Ascendant, so we don't have any of these path nodes, which lets us start at another class's starting location, we actually need to path from the Sion wheel in the middle. That way, we have some we use like a good amount of skill points to get all the way down here to the duelist side of the tree where normally these Flicker Strike builds are. But it's also kind of helpful because we go all the way over here to hit Avatar Fire for 50% of physical conversion to fire. We hit another 40% from Fire Mastery, and the remaining 10% comes from Assyrian Exarch implicit, which gives us 10% of physical damage converted to fire. That way we convert all physical to fire damage. The duelist tree is pretty straightforward. Most importantly, we're using Iron Reflexes together with Unraving Stance, so we cannot be stunned. Very important for Flicker builds. If you are not stun immune, you're going to have a lot of problems. This is the easiest way pretty much to fix it. Then accuracy fixing, these 3 nodes, and you can actually take these 3 nodes over here too if you feel you need them. We're also running precision with level 6. That way we fix our accuracy, and we have some accuracy rolls crafted on an amethyst ring. Don't need it on the weapon. Luckily, you can save it up for a critical strike chance roll. Other than that, these 2 for fixing intelligence. Intelligence is not that tight, but it's 111 because of increased critical damage. As you can see, we have nearly 100% crit chance. This is totally reachable to 100% if you invest into critical strike chance on some of the items and a little bit on the tree. We have a lot of them too. Other than that, it's pretty much standard duelist stuff. We take the sword tree over here with critical strike chance mastery. We go over here, take these life nodes. We go over here for the rage gain. We have 36 max rage on melee hit. This one is actually important and exhaustible. This way we gain endurance charges when hit, 25% chance. The reason for this is because we're using Arn's Anguish, which gives us brutal charges. If you don't know what brutal charges do, they replace endurance charges and they give you chance to deal triple damage. So very, very good. Other than that, we get these normal nodes over here out of the Gladiator, Master of the Arena. Go over here, get these leech nodes with 10% of leeches instant. Titanic impacts. These crit nodes are actually important because they also give accuracy on the small nodes. Then the Preservation Mastery over here, but always from your skills have 10% increased effect on you. Life. This wheel, this elemental wheel, is a big damage increase. It also gives Ignite chance, which we obviously need very high. We have 95%, so almost 100%. We will pretty much always Ignite, which will trigger then our Sacrifice. So we don't have a problem with that at all. We take this sword half wheel over here for all the crit gains. We stack a lot of frenzy charges, of course, since we're a flicker build, so the big damage increase, life wheel. And over here we also go for Disciple of the Slaughter. Remember, minimum frenzy charges cannot be consumed, but it doesn't matter. This is mostly for the buffs that these small nodes over here give, and of course increased damage per frenzy charge, so increased damage, increased attack speed, increased movement speed, increased evasion. So we get a lot from stacking frenzy charges. Over here, this fire wheel is very good. It adds a lot of damage. As you can see, 2 million damage. And again, 40% of physical damage converted to fire, very important. There's a lot of things you can move around on this side of the tree. There's like a lot of good stuff here. Soul of Steel is very good for maximum all res and the armor. This protection mastery is good. It gives a bunch of maximum res together with 2 maximum res. And over here, we actually near the other one. You can go straight into this one if you want, right? This one also gives maximum to all res and then +2. You can take the Sion Life View, which is always really good. This Rage Mastery over here gives attack speed plus maximum rage, adds a ton of damage. Also, this two-handed off tree over here also adds a ton of damage as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you can move around on this side of the tree. You can also take Tribal Fury. Ring Strikes deal splash damage to a running target. Since Flicker Strike is a strike skill, so you'll have a lot faster and like clear if you don't have any of the heralds. That's pretty much the skill tree. Going over the skill gems, Flicker Strike in a 6 things, of course, using increased critical damage, Awakened Fire Pen, elemental damage with attacks. Close combat is very, very good because of how Flicker Strike works. Will always be an absolute melee range of close combat, so we will always hit the maximum like damage increase from close combat. Since close combat is based on proximity, 39% more melee damage, extremely good, and multi-strike. That way we expand less frenzy charges and get additional flickers basically. We'll be using Assassin's Mark with Mark on hit. This way we generate power charges. It gives us a bunch of crit and crit multiplier, right? We have 2 sixling because we're using a two-handed weapon. So in this one we have Mark on hit with life tap, so we don't have to deal with the mana problems. Enduring Cry and urgent orders is really nice to gain more endurance charges and also regen your life. Leap Slam, fast attacks, fortify life tab. Extra fortify with life tab mostly for the leap slam, so you don't expend mana again. The always we're using is gonna be anger and determination with precision on level 6. Not higher than that. You just need to hit accuracy maximum, right? Anything lower than that, you're gonna hit chance problems. Anything higher, you're gonna invest too heavy and you're gonna lose unreserved mana, right? So 6, it's pretty good, depending on how your accuracy rolls are. Right, and then that, just keep it at 6. Anger, big damage increase, adds additional fire damage. And determination, of course, for the armor, we have 85% physical damage reduction, very good. Blood Rage is not for frenzy generation. It's mostly just for the attack speed that it gives. We have a bunch of frenzy generation. Flicker Strike gives frenzy generation. We have 25% chance to gain frenzy charge on hit. Together with the 10% from the quality, we of course get it from our sacrifice or ascendancy, and we also gain it on kill from Disciple of Slaughter. So we have 3 different ways to generate frenzy charges. Makes this build really smooth with the frenzy charges being used by Flicker Strike. Lastly, cast from damage taking setup with Molten Shell. Since we are an armor build, this one makes the most sense. Extra damage. Nothing really else. I mean, you could instead do Immortal Call, right? Since we have endurance charges. And lastly, Berserk, since we have Rage, which I don't have on right now. This thing loses Rage very quickly, so mostly just use this on hard rares and unique enemies and map bosses and stuff. Lastly, the items. Nothing too crazy on the rare item. Get the increased critical strike chance, so you get highest possible increased critical strike chance. You can totally hit 100% though. If you invest a little bit more heavily, for example, on this ring, you can gain increased critical strike. You can move some stuff around. You could make it a diamond ring, so you get increased critical strike that way. Helmet, increased mana reservation efficiency. We don't need an Enlighten. We just need this increased mana reservation efficiency from Ether implicit on this helmet. +2 to maximum lightning rest. There's really nothing better. 405 accuracy roll is very important. That is the minimum you should have. If you gain higher than that, let's say you gain 500, you can either down level your precision, or you may be able to remove some of these accuracy nodes on the tree and put them somewhere else, right? Body armor +2 to maximum all res from Searing Exarch. Melee hits have a chance of fortify. We melee anyway, so that's very nice. we're pretty much always fortified. Adds a good amount of damage from physical hit, max hit. Other than that, it's straightforward. Try to gain as much armor and evasion on the chest piece as possible. Gain a big life roll, and that's all you need. Fire and Chaos craft is just to fix Chaos resistance. As you can see on most of these items, I'm just fixing Chaos res. These gloves, as I said before, 10% of physical damage converted to fire, very important. And the Ether, another increased critical strike chance to try to hit 100%. On that, just armor life resistances. These boots are craftable, and the way that you craft them is you gain an unveiled Chaos Orb, or you gain an unveil on a pair of boots, and you unveil the chance to avoid being chilled with increased movement speed, which is a prefix, and the chance to avoid being frozen is a craft, which is also a prefix. So instead of armor, right, you'll be using these two open prefixes for chance to avoid being chilled, chance to avoid being frozen. That way you have two of the biggest problems from all of the elements down. Since we don't really have space for Storm Shroud, you could use this Jewel gem socket and could go for Storm Shroud and replace these implicits with shock avoidance, right? And then the other one is the ailment avoidance. Together with the thick skin nodes, you will pretty much be able to hit 100% with two implicit modifiers. These boots are a bit more affordable, and if you're unlucky, you have problems rolling the chance to shock avoidance and the elemental avoidance. And Storm Shroud is about 4 divines, right? And at League Start, obviously, it's not gonna be there. So that is like the earlier solution to Storm Shroud. We're gonna be using Yoke of Suffering with Whispers of Doom allocated. Whispers of Doom. We will be using a Warlord Amethyst ring for Curse flammability. Yoke of Suffering specifically is for your elemental damage can shock. This is very nice, as the shock will then be based upon the elemental damage we do. So we will pretty much always hit 50%, as you can see here by the shock effect. The only thing that pretty much we can 50% shock is pinnacle bosses, which have like an extremely high ailment threshold. But with the endgame items, we'll fix it later. Further than that, this item is also really nice. Gives a bunch of resistances and reduced duration of ailments on enemies, which is a bit of a nerf, but right, we're not an ailment build, it's fine. Polaric Devastation needs to be in the left ring slot, specifically for cover enemies on Ash for 5 seconds when you ignite them. Covers enemy in Ash straight up about like 600,000, and later it will be like 1 million in the endgame setup. So very good. Again, Amethyst ring mostly to fix chaos resistance with Warlord flammability, and the accuracy rating craft is also important to hit 100% hit chance. The belt I've explained before, Aunt's Anguish from Maven, will be very nice to replace Endurance charges with brutal charges, and give you, also this item gives a high amount of fire resistance, so you pretty much fix all of your fire resistance mostly with just this item. Instant recovery, Divine Flash, it's a little bit of an oh shit button with remove curse, it's very nice. Diamond Flask, increase critical strike chance, right? Try to hit 100%. Silver Flask for the onslaught, and all of these flasks also have chance to get a flash shot when you deal critical strikes, since we pretty much always deal critical strikes anyway. Immunity to shock, immunity to bleed, and immunity to poison on the Amethyst Flask. That way we get more chaos resistance by having this flask up, which adds a ton of effective hit pool. It actually hits a good amount of clear too. We have like 6.5 attacks per second, which is very good for Flicker Strike build. High amounts of crit multiplier, good amount of damage. Effective hit pool could obviously be a lot better, but I tried to make the best of it as I could. Let's go into the endgame setup. As you can see, the damage increase is extreme. 22 million DPS, and that's without Berserk or the last one. If you get another 6 link on the chest or the weapon, you can also gain Val Haste, and that will add 3 million damage. It's still very good though, right? and it also gives you a bunch of movement speed. So that's another thing you can use to increase your damage by a good amount in the endgame setup. Other than that, going over the items on the rare sword, what you pretty much want is crit chance, right? High crit chance roll, and then you can craft crit multiplier, attack speed, and the remaining T1 Phys fire and increased physical damage on Azumite Blade for the global critical strike multiplier. The helmet pretty much stays the same, except try to get a chaos resistance roll, so we hit chaos res cap. Nothing really changes here. Maybe try to hit that high 12% increased mana reservation efficiency, and that's pretty much it. Instead of going for the earlier Searing Axarch Eater of World chess piece, you're here going for Warlord chess piece, and that's for gain 1 endurance charge every second if you've been hit recently. And level 1 of Socrates skill gems, quality of Socrates skill gems, big damage increase, and just a way better way to gain endurance charges for Aunt's Anguish than we had before, right? Gloves pretty much stay the same, high res rolls. You can get some damage on the gloves if you get the increased attack damage roll on a prefix, and the add fire damage to attacks on a prefix as well. Boots, as I've said before, in late game it's better to go for Storm Shroud instead of the this, which is just for calculating how the Ascendancy works and part of building. You'll be having this obviously, and it'll fix all of the elemental ailments. That is pretty much how that will go. So you hit chance to avoid being shocked and chance to avoid elemental ailments. And you need to get T5, you need to get hit 80%, and then 20% from the thick skin plus the small nodes. That will put you at 100% chance to avoid being shocked. And then Storm Shroud will put it to all elemental ailments. So that way you will be completely immune to all of these elemental ailments, as you can see, which frees up last space suffixes. Uniques don't really change. This Amethyst Ring Warlord, you can get some damage out if you get fire damage to attacks prefix and increased elemental damage with attack skills prefix. Other than that, anything pretty much stays the same. In the end game, what's really good for more damage is a Cinder Swallow. This also gives some leech and mana leech. It's very nice. You probably have so many charges anyway that this will pretty much always be up. So you can just enchant it and put in Instilling Orb with useful charges for each 4, right? That way it will be pretty much always on when you're just clearing. Same with the other flasks, no problem there. In the end game, you can replace the Amethyst flask for Progenesis. This adds a ton of effective hit pool. We've lost some effective hit pool because I removed some armor on the tree, and instead this is fine. Together with the 50% of damage taken, recoup his life is very good with Progenesis, since this gives, when hit during effect, 25% of loss from damage taken occurs over 4 seconds instead, and damage recoup or life recoup also occurs over 4 seconds, right? So it'll work together like that, which is very nice. You can also go for a Prismatic Tincture. This increases your damage by a lot, as you can see, like 4.2, 4.3 million damage increase. The thing with the way that mana burn works is it inflicts mana burn pretty much every second, almost every second, and you lose 1% of your mana per mana burn stack, right? So if you have this on for 10 seconds, you'll lose 10% of your mana. It keeps going like that until you reach 0 mana, which means if you have higher mana cost like here, it might turn off really early. And that's a little bit of the problem, since there's really no mana overleach, right? And we can't outweigh this. So you might not have this on for a very long time. Maybe have this if you're going for this only for bosses instead. Me personally, I think Progenesis is better. It's also affordable. It's not too expensive if you have this kind of endgame setup anyway. Then a Watcher's Eye, I think the best to go for is Anger. We also have Determination. So if you want to, you can also go for the Determination nodes. There's some good ones in here. Additional armor, physical damage reduction are very good. We don't take this anyway, so we don't need that. There's also precision. The only precision node that is really worth it is increased damage. Other than that, the other ones don't nearly give as much damage as the anger nodes. So if you can get this triple anger, really nice. If not, get like any two of these nodes and you'll be fine damage wise. Or you can get a little bit more of a defensive Watcher's Eye and go for the determination instead. This way you'll add like 4.4 thousand effective hit pool, 2000 physical max hit. Then Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flash is actually extremely good on Sion, as we get Ascendant. And Ascendant has Berserker. Berserker is extremely good. 15% more damage, 2% of attack damage, leech its life and mana if you've killed recently, cannot be stunned while you have at least 25 rage. Inherent rage loss starts 1 second later. So this frees up Unraving Stance, which we can put in other places. The other options which are very good are, you might think that Slayer is good, but we actually get most of what Slayer gets already from our own Ascendancy. The only thing that's good here is life. If leech effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled, the way we have Slayer over leech, which is of course always very nice. And then Champion, nothing too much important. Like Taunt is kind of nice. Fortify is kind of nice. We already have Intimidate, doesn't really matter. Then Warden, chances per spell damage. If you want to, this is an option. You can gain chances per spell damage roll on each of these items, and then try to get 100% with a Quartz Flask, and together with Warden, it's pretty much possible. The attack damage penetrates 8% of elemental resistance, is also really nice. As you can see, big damage increase. Over here, Trickster actually has some good stuff. 2% more damage for each different type of mastery you've allocated. 2% of damage leech as energy shield. We really don't have any energy shields, so 2 of these nodes are not important. Nearby monsters, action speed is most 92% of base value, which is very nice. So we have like an action speed reduction aura. But big damage increase, as you can see. 4 million extra damage from this Trickster node. Assassin is really not that important. We pretty much have everything we need crit-wise in the end game. Saboteur doesn't do anything. I think most of these other ones really don't do much. Maybe Inquisitor, which adds like 2.6 million damage because of the elemental penetration. Gives you consecrated ground linger effects and consecrated ground to crate. And then nearby enemies take 10% increased elemental damage, but I think Berserker is by far the best one because it frees up passive skill point. And that's pretty much your choices when it comes to Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Flame. Let me show you the skill tree. The things that I've changed is I went for these two-handed nodes in the end together with this mastery, which adds like 3.8 million damage. And then I added all of these jewel sockets, right, that we didn't take before on the path. We had a bunch of jewel sockets, like 3, and then you can take this one if you want instead of something else over here instead. If you want another jewel socket, that is pretty much on the tree. I also removed Sword of Steel, which was the armor removal, and went with Critical Strike Chance, Heartseeker. That way you hit more Critical Strike multiplier, which is like another 1.1 million damage increase. Everything except that pretty much stays the same. The pathing, I tried to change the pathing to see if there's like a better way. The thing is, Master of the Arena and Art of the Gladiator is just so good. Plus the 3 life nodes, you want them always. And there's just no better way to path this. And anyway, specifically because we need these 3 over here. As you can see, they give accuracy. If you get better accuracy rolls, you might be able to remove them. And then you can remove this, right? Now you're at 95 and you have 4 more passive skill points to play with. And that is pretty much the endgame version of this build. So normally you can't league start this as you need Aura Sacrifice or way to generate frenzy charges, right? But with this specific Ascendancy, it's actually totally possible to league start this. This is the starting point. We'll get 2 passive skill points. So these 2 passive skill points are normal lab, and then we'll hit this wheel where we gain Stasis Prison. this bottom wheel is where we'll gain or sacrifice, right? So we'll at normal lab, and then medium lab we'll hit this, and then in the third lab we'll actually be able to hit, and Uber lab you'll be hit all the way back here. So that way you can pretty much league start. So here you go Spectral Throw into Magma Strike or whatever it's called. And then you would probably swap into this on hitting the third lab at level, what is it, like 66 when you reach Act 10. You can pretty much swap into this, and you can actually play Flicker Strike as a starting build. Looking at these items, they're all really simple, just like not even high rolls, right? It's just life, resistances, and the accuracy crafts, which is the T2 crafts, which you gain in campaign. So nothing too big here. Double amethyst ring. The damage roll, increase the element damage with attack is not needed. Leather belt. If you have any left over, try to get a chaos resistance roll. The chaos resistance, the flask pretty much stayed the same. Nothing really need to change there. 380,000 damage. I'd say absolutely good enough for early maps, and that's with like 5 link T70 gems. Nothing really big changes over here either way. Remove urgent order since you probably won't be having a second 5 link, and just a little bit damage nodes removed over here, life nodes removed over here, which are instead you take these two, so you hit like 4,100 life, and everything else pretty much stays the same. And we will not have any of these dual sockets until we reach the end game. And some of these frenzy charges removed as well, as they don't scale so well when we don't have any of this stuff that scales well with frenzy charges. But we're still Unwavering Stance, we still have Iron Reflexes. Very important that you gain these two as early as possible, as Flicker Strike feels absolutely atrocious without stun immunity. Monsters will hit you while flickering, and if you get stunned, it will stop, right? And then you'll have the stun duration. If we look at this, right now it's stun avoidance because we have the node allocated. But right, this stun duration, you might not think that's not a lot. But 92% stun chance is a lot. And you'll just get chain stunned. You'll be surrounded by monsters and you won't be able to do anything and you'll just die, which is horrible. It feels horrible to do that as a Flicker Strike build. But it's definitely viable to league start this for sure. And that's pretty much the entire build. If you like, leave a like, leave a subscribe. See you around.